Hey, what is going on, Frag fam? I hope you guys are all doing well today. Elliot here. Welcome back to The Fragrance Well. For today's video, we're going to do a full review. I haven't done one in a while, and it's going to be from Alghabra, and it is Jamaican Tobacco. And again, this is a full review, so I have had the fragrance for a little while now. I've worn it a number of times, and I'm going to give my full thoughts, which I don't do often enough. I want to do this a little bit more often going forward. Full transparency, single reviews often don't do that well in views, but people do get value out of them, so I'm gonna do them nonetheless. So again, Alghabra Jamaican Tobacco is the fragrance we're going to talk about here today. I have been thoroughly impressed with this scent. There's a little bit of a backstory with the fragrance as well to make the video maybe a little bit more interesting, but we're going to go ahead and get right into it because that's all we're talking about. So before we get started, as always, please remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you do like the content, and please hit that bell icon and enable notifications so you can be notified when I upload new videos. Let's get into it. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and go through my full review rundown. That's going to be presentation. I don't remember it. Hang on, I'm looking at it. It's presentation, what it smells like, comparisons, performance, compliment factor, and rating and final thoughts. So up first, this is the box it comes in. Quite nice, but it's a pretty basic box. This is a sleeve cover for the holder itself, and then fragrance will fit into that slot like so. So that's the presentation. It's not one I would call elaborate, but it is nice and secure nonetheless. Let's go ahead and set that there. And here's the bottle here. Hang on, let me wipe off all my fingerprints off of it. But yeah, there's the bottle there. Alghabra Jamaican Tobacco. And it is an extrait de parfum. This was released at the same time as Peruvian tobacco from the brand, which if I'm not mistaken, that was earlier this year. So as far as I can remember, this is a 2024 release. It's got the information, just typical fragrance information on the bottom, and this is a 50 milliliter bottle. All right, so let's move on to what it smells like. Let's get to the fun stuff. Let's go ahead and just spray this on a strip, because why not? Oh man, I like this stuff. So what is this? This is a somewhat fruity, spicy, really nice, kind of leafy tobacco with a touch of smokiness to it. There is some sweetness to sweeten it up a bit. It is a little bit woody as well. And man, the stuff just smells super high quality, super enjoyable. It is perfect for this time of year. And if you are a fan of tobacco fragrances, I do think it is one worth getting your nose on. Now, here's the interesting thing about this fragrance. I looked on the website when I got this in maybe 2 weeks ago or so, whatever it was. This one and Peruvian tobacco, which is the one it was released with, there's no information on the website about it. It is wild, and the fragrance has been out a while, and unless I'm just not looking in the right place, I can't find any information on this fragrance. The information online is somewhat limited. So with all that being said, there's no notes given for this fragrance. So anything I say I'm smelling, I'm just giving my opinion on it. So when I say spice, it's like a combination of spice. There's not one in particular that sticks out. And I wouldn't even say it's really that cinnamon-like spice. There's some other stuff in here. There may be some pink pepper. I do get that kind of spicy floral quality that you sometimes get with certain spices that don't have an overall warm quality. But yeah, definitely get that. There's probably some cardamom or something in this, but I don't know what the spice breakdown is. It is a spice accord as far as I'm concerned. As far as the tobacco goes, is it actually like tobacco straight from Jamaica? I have no idea. I don't know tobaccos around the world like that. This may be more of an attitude more so than it is a particular type of tobacco, but I just don't know for sure. And like I said, I definitely get some sweetness. It may even be just kind of an amber accord. I'm not 100% sure. And I do get a little bit of woodiness. Again, can't really pick out anything in particular. But so I'm not gonna sit here and pretend I know what the notes are to this fragrance. I don't. And again, that's the characteristics I get from the scent, but nothing smell-wise is really sticking out to me where I can be like, oh, I think it's that. I'm not really getting that from the scent. And I kind of like that, frankly. Because sometimes you can get so caught up in the notes that you just forget to just enjoy the scent as it is presented. But that's what the fragrance smells like. So let's move on to the next thing, which is going to be the comparisons. Now, this is where the backstory comes in. This smells not exactly like, but it smells like Mancera red tobacco. I am not gonna sugarcoat that. When I first got my nose on the scent, and I got samples of this one and the Peruvian tobacco, which I'm not gonna go into too much detail about that one, but I got samples of it around the time it first came out. Scent Split, as far as I know, got it first. Scentsplit.com, a very large decanter site that also does sell full bottles, but they got Jamaican tobacco in first, as far as I know. Actually sent an email about it, so I was certainly curious, so I got a sample. Soon as I sprayed it on the strip and smelled it initially, I was like, well, this smells exactly like red tobacco, so I kind of wrote it off at the time. But I kept the sample because I said, I probably need to come back to it, because once you spray it on skin and smell it a little more intently, and also you're not smelling it with a bunch of other samples, you probably can get a better picture of it. Long story short, I did come back to it, and I was like, okay, yeah, there's some clear differences between this and red tobacco, and the first thing is going to be the quality of it. The second thing is the fact that the tobacco in it is much more apparent right off the bat, because the scent overall is much simpler than red tobacco is. And naturally, when I got this in, I said, yep, spray this on one arm, spray this on the other arm, let's compare them side by side in real time. They are walking down the same highway in terms of a style of fragrance. There's no denying that. But one thing is for sure, there is no roughness with this in the opening. Red tobacco, infamous for having a very rough opening. None of that is here. This one, I think the saffron is part of what's giving that roughness. I don't get any saffron from this, so that's a big difference there. It just has a similar spice profile and a similar use of combining spices and sweetness and woody tobacco notes. That's the similarity, but this has a lot more going on. It's far more rough around the edges. There's a clear quality difference between the two. And again, like I said, this is actually a much more simple fragrance. This one's a little bit more complex. In terms of any ashiness or smokiness from the tobacco element, much more strong in this than it is in this one. So you can compare the two from a general smell standpoint, but if you A/B them side by side, there are some differences. But I can tell you right now, if you like red tobacco, you will probably like this. So what it comes down to ultimately is, are you willing to pay for this one over something like red tobacco? I did get this discounted because it's becoming a little bit more available. I got it from Max Aroma for like 20% off. Full retail, which I believe is $280, but that's still significantly more expensive than red tobacco, and it is less than half the amount of juice overall. So it's one of those things where I would say sample it first and decide, is it worth you paying that much more money for it? So that's the comparisons. That's pretty straightforward comparisons. Performance. As I did mention, this is an extrait de parfum. This stuff here lasts all day on my skin. Is it projecting all day? No. But in terms of being detectable on the skin, at least 24 hours for me. And I'm just being completely honest. It's pretty much a beast mode fragrance. So yeah, performance is pretty doggone good. And I would say the projection on it is definitely good as well. It's not like fill up a room. Red tobacco is probably a little bit stronger in terms of projection, but I would say it's still a good projector overall. So if you like projecting and performing fragrances in terms of longevity and all that good stuff, you will get that. I know some people don't like spending money on fragrances that cost a lot and, they don't perform to their standards, which that can be different from person to person. And I'm not going to go into whether you should or shouldn't care about that. I know I don't care about it as much, but I can say comfortably, because I've worn this a few times now, Jamaican tobacco will last on the skin. So, or at least it does on mine. Your experience may differ. That's why I say sample first. But from what I'm getting from it, that is not a problem. All right, compliment factor. I would say it's pretty much the same as something like a red tobacco will give you. These type of tobacco fragrances are not always like the most successful compliment garnering tobacco scent DNAs, but they don't necessarily push people away either. I think it's very pleasant. If it's someone who likes spiciness in fragrances, they'll probably like this. And if you wear it in a proper environment where it's socially rich and, you're probably not going to run into anybody really smelling like something like Jamaican tobacco, higher chance of compliments, I think, in that regard. But yeah, compliment factor on it, I don't know. I give it a 7. Any fragrance that kind of falls under that category where it's like, it's possible, but maybe not like, oh my God, everybody's going to lose their minds over it, I usually just give that a 7. So that's what I would say for that. Because not everybody really likes this kind of stuff to the point where they may say something to you. All right, so let's do the ratings and my final thoughts. I'm pretty comfortable giving a rating on this. This is a 9 out of 10 for me. Easily. I mean, this stuff is amazing. And again, I wrote it off when I first smelled it, but that's because it was just kind of the initial smell. And anytime you smell something initially, you know, you don't really get the full picture. Your nose is trying to get used to it. And like I said, I was like, well, that just smells like red tobacco. I'm not going to buy another red tobacco. But again, there is a pretty clear quality difference. So if you're someone who appreciates quality in fragrances, I think it's worth looking into. And again, there are some differences. It does not 100% smell like red tobacco. Now, if you're someone who has not really developed your nose to the point of noticing the nuances in fragrances, you might just say it smells like red tobacco and it ain't worth it. If that's the case, cool, don't buy it. It is definitely more expensive than red tobacco is. But yeah, that's my rating on it. Final thoughts, I think this fragrance is outstanding. This is the one that basically makes me want to look more into the house of Alghabra. I've only smelled 3 of them. I've smelled the Labyrinth of Spices, which is one Justin Copeland pushes a lot, which I didn't really care. I thought the scent was interesting, but it's not something I would wear. And with the Peruvian tobacco, now that one is definitely much more unique than this is. And that one's a whole nother monster. I will leave that alone for maybe doing a review if I do get a full bottle of it, which I do plan on doing. But this one here, excellent. If you like red tobacco, there's a good chance you will like this. It's just up to you to determine if you want to spend the money on it. All right, guys, that was my full review for Alghabra Parfums. Is it Parfums? Yeah, I think it's Alghabra Parfums Jamaican Tobacco. If any of you guys have experience with this fragrance and you want to share your thoughts down below, feel free to put that into the comments. If you're curious about the fragrance, you want to ask a couple of questions, you can put them in the comments if it's a simple question, but please don't ask me, is it worth it? You need to find that out for yourself. And that's all there is to this video, so thanks again for watching all the way into the end. I really do appreciate you guys. Please remember to be well and smell well, and I'll see you in the next episode of The Fragrance Well. Have a good one.